Things are not going well for Games Workshop and Amazon. Games Workshop actually confirmed a rumor that the announced television or movie that they are developing with Amazon and Henry Cavill could indeed be scrapped if they do not meet creative guidelines by the end of the year. This confirms a rumor that we've discussed from Arch over on the Archcast. Before we get to this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. Roll this up over at thatparkplace.com. And let's get into what Arch originally claimed back in June before we get to Games Workshop's confirmation of this rumor. This is what he said. He said, right now, the agreement in principle between Games Workshop and Amazon appears to be in effect. This means that a team at Amazon, a team of writers, is right now trying to write out a story that is going to be turned into the Warhammer 40k television show. They have, I believe, a few more months on this deadline for this project, and they have to hand it in, and then it either has to be greenlit or they have to have their writing date further postponed in the hope that they can produce something better further down the line, or the entire project will be shelved. He then added, those are the three opportunities. Either they'll have a project they'll go ahead with, they'll shelve the whole thing, or they will extend the deadline to try and get a decent product going. In other words, nothing is finalized yet. Absolutely nothing. There isn't even any money for the project allocated, as far as my insider can tell, on Amazon's behalf. No writing staff has been truly hired. No money has been truly allocated. No plans have been truly made. And this was confirmed. This was confirmed by Games Workshop in their annual report. That annual report says this: Games Workshop and Amazon are working together for a period of 12 months ending in December 2024 to agree to creative guidelines for the films and television series to be developed by Amazon. The agreement will only proceed if the creative guidelines are mutually agreed between Games Workshop and Amazon. We will update you accordingly. So this confirms Arch's source, his rumor, that there was nothing happening. They are literally talking about putting together creative guidelines before they even move forward on any film or television production. And it looks like they have until December 2024 to agree to these guidelines. And seemingly, if they don't agree to it, it looks like the deal could fall through completely and nothing gets made, nothing happens. What is interesting is the report also does note that if they do indeed come together for these guidelines, not only does Amazon get the rights to Warhammer 40k, but they'll also get the rights to Warhammer Fantasy. The annual report says this: under the terms of the agreement, Games Workshop has granted exclusive rights to Amazon in relation to films and television series set within the Warhammer 40,000 universe, together with an option for Amazon to license equivalent rights in the Warhammer Fantasy universe following the release of the initial Warhammer 40,000 production. So that is interesting there as well. There is a lot clearly riding on this, but it could all go up in smoke if they do not agree to these creative guidelines. And there could be a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. We've seen a bunch of rumors regarding this. But before we get to some of those, specifically regarding maybe what Henry Cavill's thoughts are, let's kind of go through the timeline of this Warhammer 40k agreement with Amazon. Games Workshop shared in a blog post in the middle of December 2023 that the company had come to terms with Prime Video and Amazon MGM Studios to have an adaptation of Warhammer 40k brought to both the big and small screens, film and television. They posted this: back in December last year, we announced Games Workshop and Amazon Studios had signed an agreement for universe to screens big and small. Well, today we have an update, and it's one we've all been longing to hear. We've now signed the full agreement, and the next stage can begin. So obviously, that next stage now is clearly putting together these creative guidelines. The company also shared, all we can tell you right now is that an elite band of screenwriters, each with their own particular passion for Warhammer, is being assembled to help bring the setting and characters you love to the screen. This illustrious group will be championed by Henry Cavill, who stands ready to take his place as executive producer, bring his pen, sword, and or spear to the project. As for when the first project might arrive, this is what Games Workshop said. TV and film production is a mammoth undertaking. It's not unusual for projects to take 2 to 3 years from this point before something arrives on screen. Still, things are now properly rolling, and you can bet we'll bring you all the latest updates and cool snippets as soon as we are able. Henry Cavill had announced that he was helming the Warhammer Cinematic Universe shortly after he announced he would not be returning to play Superman in James Gunn's what was then called Superman Legacy. I think they've renamed it now. It's just Superman. He shared this to Instagram in December 2022. He said, "For 30 years, I have dreamt of seeing a Warhammer universe in live action. Now, after 22 years of experience in this industry, I finally feel that I have the skill, set, and experience to guide a Warhammer Cinematic Universe into life. Partnering with Natalie Viscuso at Vertigo has been a blessing beyond words. Without her, we might not have found the perfect home at Amazon. And having a home like Amazon will give us the freedom to be true to the massive scope of Warhammer. To all of you Warhammer fans out there, I promise to respect this IP that we love. I promise to bring you something familiar, and I endeavor to bring you something fantastic that is, as of yet, unseen." He then said, "Our first steps are to find our filmmaker, creator, writer. Watch this space, my friends." We've gotten some updates since then, obviously. In February, while promoting Argyle, he told the Happy, Sad, Confused podcast, "It is the greatest privilege of my professional career to have this opportunity. I can't say too much again. It's early days still, but to have this opportunity to bring it to the screen and be at the tiller so it can be faithful is key." So he's obviously making it clear he wants to stay faithful and true to the Warhammer 40k lore. This is the stuff I've been dealing with since I was a kid. This is the stuff I spend my free time daydreaming about as an adult as well, and I get to bring it into life. And there is no greater reason than I joined the industry than doing something like this, and I'm very happy to be here. He also teased he might team up with director Matthew Vaughn when Josh Horowitz asked, "Have you tried to get Matthew into Warhammer or gaming at all?" Cavill responded, "No, not yet." Vaughn retorted, "Gaming? I love gaming. What do you mean gaming at all? But we've spoken." And then Cavill added, "Yeah." And then Vaughn continued saying, "Yeah, listen, I said I'd work with Henry in lots of different ways." And Cavill concluded with a grin saying, "Yeah, watch the space." He also previously told Collider, "Warhammer is progressing very well. Big things are happening, and we are very excited." So there was also this rumor surfaced on 4chan. And it said this: female custodies are only going to be mentioned in the codex. No new sculpts or characters after the fact. Social media department jumped the gun and tried to put out fires with the wrong hose. Intent is to push female custodies character in Amazon show without it breaking lore, because Amazon execs wanted a woman in power armor and wouldn't settle for Sisters of Battle. People involved in the show are pissed because they've been moving ahead on Eisenhorn. Talks of inserting said female custodies into Eisenhorn's story, with Cavill threatening to walk away from the project. Small stock drop today, but Games Workshop figures it can ride it out if it stays mum on the subject. They really need better social media employees. And then specifically with Cavill, it said Cavill will be in an article due to heading to Games Workshop to work on the new series this week or next. If he leaves, it'll be a noticeable hit to the share price, meaning the show is dead. Good ending, or Amazon is calling the shots. Bad ending. You can trust me. My dad works at Nintendo, so who knows if there was any validity to this. Obviously, this was something that was making the rounds at the time because of the whole female custodies and the gaslighting that Games Workshop did over that. And then it also kind of spawned this from Arch, because he shared this information from his source. Again, we now know that his source was right with the fact that the show could be scrapped. So I do think this information here is pertinent as well. And this is what he said. He says, "My Amazon insider has given me some more information in regards to the female custodies debacle and Amazon's involvement in it, which may, at least in part, exonerate Games Workshop." Remember, they are trying to come up with these creative guidelines. And I think this is extremely pertinent to that battle or that discussion or the agreement, if they eventually get to that point, of what these creative guidelines should be. And so Arch said, "According to my insider here, the attitude at the Amazon Games Workshop meetings reached downright threatening levels where the two sides were not happy with one another at all, with Games Workshop actually pushing back quite aggressively on the idea of female Space Marines. probably understanding to do so would be devastating to their company. I mean, look at the sheer scale of the crap storm that was created by female custodies, which is not anywhere near as massive a faction as the Space Marines. GW know this would be a terrible idea, push back a lot, but Amazon were not willing to give up on this either, and may have carried out various little tactics like threatening to bring back people on Amazon who are selling third-party goods for 40K related stuff, as they did even take down things like alternative dice sellers and people were selling bases and so on. That might have been a thing. And they might also have perhaps been talking about leaving the conversation altogether. He then said this: eventually, my insider says GW caved in part, and the female custodies was a compromise solution intended both to ameliorate relationships with Amazon by going, okay, how about this? You'll have your female power armor, but we don't do it with Space Marines, okay? And also as a way to demonstrate to Amazon that this was not going to go over very well. In fact, Arch stated that an automated Amazon system has noted significant complaints regarding the company's various IP-related shows, such as Wheel of Time, Rings of Power, and Warhammer. He said this, and indeed Amazon's bots as well that monitor the feedback that Amazon gets has been noticing a sharp uptick in people sending in complaints about them ruining universes like the Rings of Power and mentioning the 40K TV show in specific. Now, there have not been acted upon, nor is there any indication that Amazon is particularly concerned yet, but there is now a sufficiently large enough volume of these complaints ahead of time to the point where their scraping bots, the software looking for feedback, is picking up on it and going, there's a lot of these. Should some human take a look at this maybe? Do we know what's going on here? What is causing this trend of negative feedback? Which, hey, it might be a wonderful way of teaching Amazon that this might not be something they want at all. He then actually discussed Henry Cavill, and he says, as for Henry Cavill, I have also heard something related to him now, namely that he is quite upset about this change. He is pissed at it, but he is not going to walk, bearing in mind that we don't even know if it is possible for him to walk at this point, as his introduction and, co-starring and producing in this was one of the earliest fundamental piece of news about the Amazon Games Workshop TV show. For all we know, he could be bound hand and foot by contractual obligation and penalties at this point. Alternatively, again, well, it's an Amazon paycheck. I'm not entirely sure I would be willing to turn that down, much less somebody who is an actual actor and this is being his job. He then said, I wouldn't be surprised if he is indeed quite upset about this because this is also his main faction, the Adeptus Custodes. So that is what we kind of know about Games Workshop. Clearly, and the Warhammer 40k TV show, movie at Amazon, clearly we now have confirmation that they aren't really even doing any kind of breaking of the story or anything at this point. It doesn't look like they are still just trying to come to an agreement over creative guidelines. And again, they made this announcement. Henry made this announcement in 2022. It is now almost August 2024. They only have 5 more months to come to an agreement over these creative guidelines. And given the fact that it's been almost 2 years already, one has to wonder what really is going on here that they have not come to an agreement over creative guidelines. One would have think that would have been hashed out relatively quickly, but it looks like there are clearly some internal disputes happening. And that rumor about the Adeptus Custodes, the female Adeptus Custodes, could be true, that it was clearly a play by GW to show Amazon that this is an absolutely terrible idea and you probably should not move forward with it. I do think there is now a lot of credence to that rumor. But let me know what you guys make of this. Let me know what you make of GW confirming this rumor that they have 5 months to get a deal on creative guidelines. Otherwise, it all could fall apart and there is no Warhammer 40k live action series or film. What do you guys make of this? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, but to always speak the truth.